Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. It is 9 o'clock right now. We are both in Nottingham. We're going to be doing a road show together. Check out one of my other videos so you'll be able to see the back scene, the back stories of this. But I'm really excited, really happy, really passionate to be able to talk to the amazing Ben Folland, who is one of our SOC analysts here at Huntress. And obviously we emphasize about the people behind the technology. It's actually wonderful to be able to speak to someone firsthand, to be able to speak to someone in the flesh about, what's going on with the SOC, but also get his experience and get his opinion of what happens with the SOC team as well. So Ben, maybe a little introduction about yourself.
Awesome, thank you for the kind intro. As Sasha mentioned, I'm Ben. I've been at Huntress probably for around 4 months now. Prior to that, I used to work at a consultancy. I love cybersecurity. I do it in my spare time. I'm a mega nerd. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here in Nottingham and presenting later today on some interesting research.
He is. Unfortunately, we're not going to be showing what he presented. You have to be there. Okay, so next time, please try to make the journey to come and see us in one of the road shows. We would love to have you. But I also want to mention that he is an absolute nerd. He's even got a YouTube channel and he's doing all his nerdy stuff there as well, which is what I absolutely love and adore. I'm going to link it down onto the description. If you want to learn more about cybersecurity, please double check Ben's page. He's got a lot of wonderful content on there. But enough said, I think it's worthwhile maybe asking some questions, some spicy questions, some questions which I feel like the audience are really going to enjoy.
Let's go for it.
And the first question I have is some real world war stories. So what's the scariest alert you have ever dealt with and how did it turn out?
Okay, so my scariest alerts related to a ransomware attack. It was the first ransomware attack I dealt with. And when we hear ransomware, we hear of files getting encrypted and companies being extorted. This is the latter end of the ransomware attack. There is a lot which happens before it. First, the adversary has to get into the network. Mm-hmm. They have to move around. They have to pillage hosts. This particular signal was earlier on in the ransomware attack. So I was rushed on time. I know I had to be quick. And if I didn't, there's a risk of this partner being encrypted or ransomed. Thankfully, we were able to catch it earlier on in the kill chain before any real damage was done. But it's definitely scary and it does put a lot of pressure on you. As you know, if you don't act fast and maybe if you make the wrong decisions, there could be a big impact which may impact people's lives, right? A company could go under. So super fortunate in that case that we were able to stop it. But that is always a fear or something you may be afraid of as an analyst because I guess it's other people's businesses and other people's lives in your hands in one way or another.
Damage of the business, reputational damage, financial damage, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And Hunters do have a fantastic mechanism to be able to detect and respond to things like ransomware. We have something called ransomware canaries, which are effectively honey files scattered around strategic locations of your machines. The SOC team will be able to see if one has been tripped, if someone's just deleted a file, encrypted it, changed the name, it goes straight onto the top of their list. So someone like Ben, the humans, the bums on seats, the people behind the technology. I always say it's not hard to find good technology in 2025. It's hard to find good people behind the technology. And someone like Ben is going to look at that canary and double check, is it a false positive or is it a real threat and do we need to respond to it? So that is quite interesting to be able to hear from you.
Yeah, 100%. And these canaries are like a final tripwire. We hope to stop them before that, but if they get to the final tripwire and they're about to maybe deploy ransomware, we can catch it instantly and then we can deploy containment, whether that's isolating the whole organization to ensure the ransomware doesn't spread or the encryption is stopped. We will do what is necessary to stop that threat.
And it's interesting you say it's kind of like a last line tripwire, for example. And he's right. Ransomware canaries actually makes up to around 2.5% of our overall EDR detections. The rest are things like a malicious process behavior, persistent footholds, Microsoft Defender. So why have we got such a low detection rate? That's because we're relying more on the persistent footholds and the process insights because we're trying to catch the bad actor as early as possible. We're not going to wait for detonation to happen because we don't want to get our partners into that state. So really interesting that you said that.
Awesome.
Right, so this is good. Let's talk about the second question.
Fantastic.
What's the most clever trick you've seen an attacker use in a real-life scenario that wasn't straight out of the textbook? That's
awesome.
Juicy.
So this actually came from, funnily enough, it was another sort of extortion ransomware case. And this was actually a known threat group. They're called Scattered Spider. and they were targeting a company, and they were after their domain controller. So the domain controller, for those who may be unaware, is like the heart of a Windows enterprise network. It stores all the credentials in a database called the ntds.dit file. And what Scattered Spider did, they had compromised their virtual machine infrastructure, their Hyper-V infrastructure, and they were able to create a new virtual machine within the victim's own environment. And this new virtual machine was rogue. It didn't have any telemetry and EDR agent on it, but it was still hidden within the network, and it allowed them persist. So what the adversaries did was they shut down the domain controller, or one of the domain controllers, and they took the disk of the domain controller and mounted it onto their rogue VM.
Oh, wow.
And as a result, they were able to copy that ntds.dit database, those Active Directory, that Windows Enterprise domain, which most people use, and they were able to sort of steal that database and then use that to compromise further accounts further down the kill chain. So that was a particular interesting bit of tradecraft, which I'd never seen in the wild, nor had we heard about it. So that was quite cool.
So that hacking group, Scattered Spider, they've made the news very recently as well, especially maybe half one of 2025 with what's going on with all these businesses, especially in retail, etc.
Yes.
And I've heard, it's still hard to believe, that they're students or kids, very young English-speaking individuals.
Yeah, so a lot of them are maybe teenagers or early adults who got involved in the wrong groups at a young age. Maybe it was from game hacking. Eventually that evolved, and they call it the sort of online community of kids, and they're called Scattered because they're not like a group which is geographically located one location. Maybe people will leave and join, but they're all around the world. They're scattered, and they're young, they're immature. But it appears they are financially motivated at the moment, and
that's interesting.
They are working with Dragon Force ransomware. So yeah,
that is so interesting to know that someone so young could be able to do so much damage.
Serious damage as well.
It is scary. Okay, so that's really interesting, then. Okay, so next question: do you feel the SOC work is more about the pattern recognition or deep analysis?
That's a really good question. I like this one. When I started my life in SOC, I really investigated deep every single alert. I spent a massive amount of time digging deep, even though I could sort of tell it was legitimate, but this was for auditing purposes. And then over time, as I got more familiar and we start seeing the same alerts pop up and again, and the same sort of activity, and then you start seeing more malicious activity, you can... Over time, you're able to identify what looks bad and what looks good just by looking at an alert and quickly scrolling through. And over time, it becomes sort of more pattern recognition. It's less conscious investigation effort, more you're looking at the telemetry and the data, and it's obvious that nothing's standing out. So over time, I've evolved to maybe recognize these patterns rather than do deep dive investigations for all alerts. Let's say we've got a ransomware case or a hands-on keyboard where there is an adversary in the network moving around. Yeah, that always requires a deep dive investigation. If we suspect that, we're gonna look into it deep. But in other cases, it's not always necessary. And over time, you get that vibe of whether an alert is good or bad just by looking at it.
Is that due to the enhanced software that you use, or is that purely because of your experience?
This is not related to software. I think this is a mix of experience and just seeing the same stuff over and over again. Maybe it's the same false positives which keep on firing. Over time, you realize these are false positives and you don't need to investigate them. Other times, it's just you've looked at logs for years and years now, and over time of looking at so many legitimate logs, you know what they look like, and then when you look at the logs of something which is suspicious, it stands out, and it's easy to spot when it stands out. So yeah,
that's really interesting to know. Okay, love that. Right, let's talk about the next one. So what tools do you trust the most, and which ones constantly let you down?
Okay, so I don't really use tools which let me down that much. One I trust and use day in, day out is CyberChef. It's a tool created by the folks at GCHQ to help with cryptography, compression. A lot of times when you're dealing with malware, malicious code, there will be some hidden data. Maybe it's encoded or it's obfuscated. And this is the reason they scramble the data is to make it harder to detect. Maybe the data is scrambled because it's actually malicious, and only when it's unscrambled can it do its malicious activity. CyberChef is a tool which helps you unscramble this, decode this data, figure out what's going on under the hood, and I use that day in, day out.
Brilliant. Okay, love that. Now, maybe off script.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just ask this, because
Go
I think you're a very intelligent young individual. You're obviously doing very well, being able to be a SOC analyst, and to I think it's very hard knowing that threats continuously evolve. If you went back 5 years ago and somebody else is in your position trying to get into security, maybe being a SOC analyst, what would you recommend?
That's a great question. And I'll give some context. I got into security when I was 14 or 15, so
Wow.
I can answer that. There was a government-funded scheme, and this is not what I would recommend people do, by the way, but I went through this government-funded scheme called Cyber Discovery. It's not on anymore. And as a result of this, I played a lot of CTFs. It was basically gamified cybersecurity, where you've got...
So CTF, capture the flag, just for anyone who isn't aware.
Yes. Thank you for that. It's, gamified cybersecurity. It's a little challenge, maybe a puzzle. Maybe you have to hack into a machine, or maybe you have to reverse some malware. But as a result of it,
you're right.
you find a flag. And these were quite addictive to me. I liked games. I liked playing. I liked competing. And over time of doing these CTFs, I, without realizing, was becoming quite strong technically. And when I was young and I was 14 and 15 and going on, I didn't realize too much that this could be a career. And it wasn't until I sort of started actually applying for a job after I didn't plan to go to university did I realize I actually had quite good skills that would be valuable in the workplace. So if I was to recommend something for people starting off, one would be CTFs. Use that to gain your technical skills. There are websites like Hack the Box, Try Hack Me. And secondly, I would say go to conferences, go to B-Sides conferences, go to wherever network, meet people.
Black Hat coming up soon.
Black Hat, 100%.
InfoSec.
I'm a big fan of B-Sides. They're community-run small events. They're all over the UK and the globe. There's loads in America. I actually met a good friend of mine, Josh, who works at Huntress, at the first B-Sides where I met him. And then over time, we spoke, and he referred me a few times. Eventually, I moved to Huntress. And funnily enough, at that same B-Sides, I also met my manager at my old company. So that one event, that one B-Sides, plus the technical experience I gained from CTFs was sort of how I got into the industry. And yeah, boom.
Love that. Absolutely. That was fantastic. And that's why it's important to network. Don't, hide just behind your computer. Go out there. We obviously deal with very shy individuals as well, because sometimes networking can be a bit stressful. Go out your comfort zone. That is where it's going to really be that fine line of being successful compared to being challenging and trying to find something that, you would have to apply. It's sometimes very important to know somebody that's in the industry, because they can advise you as best as they can. Someone like Ben would be very good. Someone like, as you mentioned, Josh would be very good as well. So I really value that input. So I've got a couple of questions left. Do you think SOC analysts, and this is a really good one, do you think SOC analysts are undervalued compared to penetration testers and red teamers?
Yeah, 100%. I originally wanted to be a red teamer and pen tester, and I think it was super cool the way it was marketed. You could be like an ethical hacker, you could break into banks, companies, and that really excited me. I liked breaking into things. I got my first SOC job, and maybe it was in the first couple of weeks, but my opinion completely changed. I just find it so more interesting investigating how actual adversaries operate and seeing their evidence in the logs, right? This stuff is so cool to me, tracking them, looking at intelligence surrounding these threat actors. Pen testers, right, it's a fancy job, and I wouldn't say it's a necessity, right? If you do your patching regularly, I wouldn't say it's a necessity. However, having like an EDR or having a managed SOC, I would say, is more of a necessity, and it's more important. They're going to be there all the time checking if something's going on. Your pen test may come once or twice a year and find a few findings which you don't action. So I think SOC analysts are much more undervalued, and I don't plan to leave the blue team and move to the red team anytime soon. So,
good man, that's what we like to hear. That's brilliant. That's really good insights. I think it's very it's very rare to be able to, especially in my realm, to have an interview directly with the person that's dealing with the threats.
Mm-hmm.
I think, they are so behind the scenes doing all the magic that a lot of the times we don't get the chance to actually bring them to the light. So this is why I'm so excited that Ben's coming into that keynote for the roadshow. This is why I'm so excited to interview Ben as well, because he has a lot of knowledge, he has a lot of experience. And to be honest, this is what makes Huntress who they are. It's because we have the right people behind the technology. And someone like Ben is a clear example on that.
I just want to follow that point and say that is very true. I've worked at previous companies, and just in like the analyst space, the passion here is different.
It is.
And I think maybe we just hire nerds. We just hire people who are really, really interested, who go to these conferences, who do these CTFs, who have these blogs. That's like our target. Like when we're hiring, this is our target audience, right? So if you are interested in moving to Huntress, like those are the things you could look at. I wouldn't worry too much about getting a degree, getting certs.
Agree.
Or at least those shouldn't be your primary concerns. Networking, socializing, maybe get a blog, do stuff like this, get yourself out, your name out there in the industry. That will go a long way.
Well, what's a good certification while we're on that topic?
So I think like the most recognized is one of the CompTIA certs, the Security Plus.
Yeah.
That's like the OG. I'm not a fan of that. I don't have that. I don't have any of the multiple choice certifications. I have the EJPT. As I mentioned, I wanted to be a penetration tester to begin with, so I got a junior pen testing cert. That was quite fun. It was interactive. It was like a 24 or 48 hour exam where we got to play around with boxes.
Oh, wow.
I would recommend checking out Hack the Box's CDSA. It's their security analyst certification. Their Hack the Box Academy is very, very high quality.
That's what John Ammons mentioned recently. I think I saw a video recently, Hack the Box.
It could have been that. I'm not entirely sure. I know he's got some training stuff as well. He's worked with Hack the Box in the past. I know he's done videos, but their Blue Team Cert and their Blue Team Academy, the Hack the Box Academy, is very, very high quality sort of content. So I would check that out.
Okay, brilliant. Love that. So let's fire through some more. Let's talk about how much of your time is spent actually investigating versus dealing with reporting and admin overhead.
I think this depends on every SOC you go to. So Huntress, the majority of my time is spent through digging through logs and investigating. Maybe I'm ripping apart malware in a VM. Maybe I'm doing some OSINT. Very little of it is writing. I would say maybe about 70%. Sometimes I'm doing both at the same time. I'm building up a report and I'm also investigating. But it's not like I'm doing paperwork all day, not at all. We get a lot of real threats. We get activity which may lead to ransomware day in, day out, and we stop these. We don't have the time to do huge reports, and that's not what our partners want either. They want to know what's happened, how we stopped it, and what they can now do to fully eradicate the threat. I don't think they're after a forensic timeline of all the hosts in the environment, which they can then pass to the lawyers. That's not what we're a 24/7 SOC which stops these threats.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, this is an interesting one. I think the audience will really like this one. If you had an unlimited budget for your SOC, what is the first thing you would change?
That's a really good question. I would invest in automation massively. I feel like there's a lot of sort of low-level quick wins. And I'm not just talking about Huntress here, maybe as an industry, as overall. Especially with like click fix, this is one of the most common malware delivery techniques we talk about nowadays, of where you trick a user to actually just copy and pasting a malicious command. If we can, a lot of this low-level malware, this info stealers, the stuff which, as an analyst, does take a lot of time, but it doesn't pose a major threat, and it takes a lot of time because we see lots of them, not necessarily because it's hard to deal with. If we could find a way as an industry to just automate all of these, and as a SOC, find ways to speed up the remediation investigation of these low-level threats so we can focus on the more serious ones. That's where I would invest my money. I'd be interested to see what AI can do. Right, I'm not a massive fan, but I think it can help. It can definitely help me as an analyst sometimes. In my spare time when I'm doing my research or I'm looking at some malware, I'm not going to lie, I use AI to help me analyze the source code sometimes, and it's really useful. So
low-hanging fruits, right? The easy tasks, for example.
The easy tasks. And I do see that happening in the future for lower-level SOC analyst roles. But I think that's something we pride ourselves in at Huntress, is that we've got lots of humans who do all the actual hard work. We do have computers and smart things going on behind, and AI stuff as well. But like, we're the ones who make the real impact, I would say.
You're absolutely correct. When I'm doing, obviously the audience know I'm a sales engineer, so I do demonstrations day in, day out. And one of the things I always emphasize about is that we have a human-led team. Okay, so we're not relying on AI, as in we may leverage technologies to help bring the correct information to our SOC analysts to start with, but it's the humans that are making the ultimate decision. Is this a real threat or is this a false positive? And then bring only the things that are actually worth the attention for the partners. But it's also important to mention that we have the real people for a very good reason, because we have a fantastic mean time to respond of 8 minutes, a false positive rate of 0.7%. Why can we have these statistics? Because we have the humans. As soon as you start bringing too much automation or too much AI, your false positive rate will start to increase dramatically. There are vendors out there that only utilize AI, and that is why they don't have an aggressive false positive rate such as Huntress. And again, Ben's team is a testimony on that. So let's talk about, I've got two more.
Perfect.
Do you think, this is an interesting one, do you think AI and automation will replace SOC analysts in the future?
Yeah, 100%. It's a matter of time, right? Maybe tier 1, lower level analysts, I could see those being maybe fully replaced in the next 5 years. And then I feel like more jobs are going to go as we go forward in time. It just depends how far in the future you're looking. There's still going to be humans involved at some layer. It's not going to be, the whole SOC can't be wiped out by AI. That's just not possible. I also don't think it's going to be as fast as everyone thinks. And I also don't trust the quality of AI at the moment. So at the moment, if I see a company which markets a fully AI managed SOC or something along those lines, I'll be careful. I'll take a step back. But I mean, it's going to happen. It's inevitable, just like any other developer jobs. But it's just a matter of time. And we're going to see how it turns out in the quality in the next few years. And
so you're saying in the next 5 years, tier 1 SOC analysts?
I reckon maybe the tier 1s will now be doing, or maybe they'll be using it, but there's already some companies out there which are moving in the direction of wiping out tier 1 with AI. So,
last question for you, Ben.
Yes.
And obviously, I appreciate you spending time with me.
Of course.
What's one piece of advice you would give to someone trying to survive a night shift in the SOC?
Get out night shifts ASAP. I worked night shifts at my previous company. I worked from nights to days, days to nights, and it's hard. After I finished the night shift, and I finished at 6 in the morning, I tried to stay awake as long as possible. I'd have a few coffees. I would feel knackered.
Down the Red Bulls.
After a 12-hour shift, I would feel awful. But if I went to bed, let's say this is the last of my night shifts. If I went to bed at 6 in the morning, I would then wake up at 3 in the afternoon and not be able to get out of that cycle again. So on the last of my night shifts, I used to just stay up as long as possible just to try and get out of that schedule. But to be honest, they are hell. They're not fun at all.
Do you think it messes up your judgment potentially because you're
100%? 100%. You're tired. You're just knackered. And you can't make good decisions when you're
Huntress doesn't have night shifts.
And this is one of the reasons why I moved here, among others. But this, it's so great working in a team. For those who aren't aware, we've got teams in the UK and the EMA, me, and Ireland. We've also got teams in Australia, the US, and a few individuals in Canada. And this means we've got that 24/7 SOC all days of the year. But all the corresponding teams get to work the 9 to 5. They get to have a normal life and not be constantly tired and fatigued. So that's a major thing.
Follow the sun.
Follow the sun, exactly.
And I think the most successful SOCs are doing that, because if you're doing a night shift, if you get someone to do 12-hour shifts or even longer, it messes up their judgment, and that could be the moments where they've made a mistake and allowed a threat to go in, or they didn't have the best judgment to be able to close that incident correctly because they're exhausted. We are humans at the end of the day. We have a brain, they need a rest. We need to also have a social life as well. We can't be burnt out. So that's why I think it's important to not have a night shift only, but to have people that are scattered around.
100%. Makes sense.
Especially a SOC team our size as well. I completely agree,
Awesome.
Look, this was fantastic. This was beautiful insight. This is definitely going to be on LinkedIn, be on the YouTube as well. But besides that, I want to just say thank you.
Thank you very much, Sasha.
Really appreciate it. I'm going to enjoy your keynote later
as well.
But stay tuned for more information and give us some feedback if you liked the conversation.
Thank you. Have a good day all.